a damp sponge just to take that canvas texture off of the rim. And I don't want a super flat rim. I want that to stay nice. Thinking about how the rim of the cup is going to greet the lip of the user. All right, and oh, I thought I cleaned off all of that cat hair before I started. All right, now this side looks pretty good. This side not so much. So this is where we can go in with a tool and just clean up that connection point. Usually that nice round, I'm going to wipe off any excess clay on my wrist. A nice round wooden tool does a really nice job of just finishing these joins. Because this is quite far, usually you can just run the tool along there and it will just seal up the join, finish it nicely. But because it's quite far, I'm finding that I'm pulling a little clay down as well. And again, I'm going to leave those imperfections in there, that little wave. That doesn't bother me at all. But if it bothers you, a Sureform tool or a cheese grater will do the job. Or even just going in with your finger and being meticulous about going over it until it feels right. Yeah, you can wipe it off on the canvas. Maybe a better idea. And again, it's just a matter of going around. I call this the petting stage. And this is really important actually in pottery, the petting stage. I underestimated it when I started out, but the petting stage is after you've made the form in the greenware stage, when it's still damp like this. This is called greenware. Spend a little time petting it, smoothing it, finishing it, and then again at the leather hard stage. So that's that halfway dry stage when it's the consistency of cheddar cheese. That's called leather hard. Spend a little time at that stage petting your pottery. And again, it's called finishing, but it feels a lot like petting it. Just getting to know it, building that relationship with the piece. And that's what makes really good pottery is that spending that extra time after you've made it, just making it, finishing it, you know? All right, so this one is pretty good at this point. And now I'm going to add the handle. So the thing is, I got this one setting up here, and I'm going to hold it behind the pot to see exactly how, where, what shape. Is it going to come up in a big loop? Is it going to be a big handle? Obviously that's too big. How big is it? How many fingers are you going to put in there? This is a good way of sort of looking at it and getting a sense. Now the thing is, I don't like any of these. There, I think it's something about like that. So this is going to be a 2-finger kind of deal. And I'm going to just cut it right there. And yes, I have had this clay knife for quite some time. Probably could be replaced, but it's got that big kink in it. But it still works. So why get rid of it if it still works? All right, so coil handles sometimes want to crack right about here from my experience, this part. So I'm just going to go in and give it a little extra love. Compressing the particles. I'm also taking that canvas texture off it by doing this as well. I'm going to just compress those particles. Now I'm getting sort of build up on my hands, so I'm just going to clean that off on a damp sponge and go back and work that corner of the handle just a bit more. Not careful not to get it wet, but working with just slightly dampened fingers should be okay. I'm not going to give you any guarantees in pottery. Potters generally make more than one of everything for a reason. You might be familiar with how often ceramics can break, and it's at risk of breaking at every single stage. See that? Do you see that? I see that. That is poor wedging, my friends. So there's a little pocket of air in there. I'm not going to worry too much about that one. I'm going to assume that's the only one, although that's probably a very naive assumption. I don't think I spent enough time wedging. There we go. Now, the other thing we have to consider, and it's still too big. The other thing we have to consider is that this clay body, almost every clay body will shrink a little. It's a matter of getting to know the clay body that you're working with. I know that this clay body, this is M340, I think I mentioned that, will be fired at cone 6. It will shrink about 10%. So I sort of just try and factor that in as I'm working. And I did forget to make my marks on there, didn't I? Yes, I did. All right, there they are. So we're going to put some, usually I'd use my wooden tool to mark it, and then scratch and slip. So there's the scratch, here's the slip. Put a little bit extra back on the handle. And from the top, attaching the top piece first, giving it a good press. And down to the bottom. And giving that a good press. Now, that's not bad. With the vinegar in it, I expect that'll stay. But to be on the safe side, if you are new to clay, to have a better chance of success, or if you're teaching children, this is a good tip. So put a little tiny little coil right down here. So I'm just going to put in a touch of slip there. I'm going to slide in a little coil right down there just to reinforce that join. Now, aesthetically, that may not be pleasing, so I'm just going to spend a little extra time smoothing it out. Now, this is a thing about cups, any dishes, I guess, but cups in particular. As you're using them, your fingers will always seek out those little crevices, like this crevice, even this crevice. So it has to be pleasing to the finger. So if you've used your finger primarily to create it, it's likely going to greet the finger of the user pleasantly. But that being said, notice I left the top there. I'm going to put another little, sorry, that being said, my kids hate it when I do that. I start a sentence and don't finish it. That being said, it doesn't mean you can't use a tool to get into those crevices that you can't reach. But before I get there, I'm going to just finish the top. Now the top, I just want to put a little, it's the wrong shape. I'm going to start again. I'm going to put a little lug on the top, and that's just for something for my thumb to play with. Right? And again, wrong shape. A little bit bigger maybe. Okay, I'm going to start the shape that I want before I apply it this time. And this is the reason why you want to keep working on a clean surface. You don't want it to pick up any dry bits of clay, like right here. Alright, so we're just going to press that into that little crevice there. This will be twofold. It's going to help reinforce that top connection, and then it's also going to give us a little plaything for our thumb. And yes, I did watch The Joy of Painting as I was growing up. Okay, sorry, all jokes aside. This is when you might want to get in there with a tool. When you find your fingers are just sliding off and it's not really working for you. I think I've got a little too much slip on there. But I always like to finish it with my finger. Just because I know that the way I work anyway, my fingers always find those little things to sort of fondle while I'm drinking my tea. There we can continue making this